I'm Dan Kadusky with the Society of Professional Journalists International Community. For the past 6 years, the Inter-American Press Association has reviewed the press freedom situation in the Americas. The latest report came out in early March, covering November 2024 to November 2025. It did not bring joy to press freedom advocates. In fact, the authors of the report noted this was one of the worst 12 months in the region. The year was marked with increased incidents of murder, arbitrary arrest, forced exile, and impunity in more than half a dozen countries. To talk about the Chapultepec Index is the executive director of IAPA, Carlos Lauria. Carlos, it's good to see you again.
Hello, thank you, Dan, for inviting me. It's great to see you. Thank you.
Well, first, why why did the IAPA start this index, and why did you name it after a famous castle in Mexico City?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Chapultepec Index on freedom of expression and the press um, started as a valuable tool for measuring institutional action on freedom of expression and the press of over 20 countries in the Americas, 23 this year, in which we have included Haiti. And it's in accordance with the principles of the Declaration of Chapultepec, which is a declaration of principles, of main principles on freedom of the press, similar to those established by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, and also the Declaration of Salta, adopted by the IPA, the Chapultepec Declaration in 1994, and the Declaration of Salta, which is freedom of expression in the digital era, first enacted in 2008 in Salta, and as the technological changes, profound changes that happened since, has been modified and amended in 2024 in the province of Cordoba in Argentina. The sixth edition of the index, unfortunately, it's a reflection of what is going on in the realm of press freedom and freedom of expression, and registers a dramatic deteriorations in the conditions of these rights in the hemisphere. It's the global average fell to the lowest recorded in the 6 editions of the barometer. And then the worsening of press freedom in a context where democracy is in decline globally, where there is deep polarization, political polarization, where the rise of autocratic governments is impacting in the work of journalists. Besides, the risks that have been always there for decades, like deadly violence and impunity, judicial harassment, stigmatization, right? The hostile rhetoric against the press is compounded by the most pronounced decline in the press among 23 countries analyzed this time, again with the inclusion of Haiti. And it is important to highlight that in this case, the United States moved from countries with low restrictions to countries with restrictions, dropping several points in the index.
I saw that it dropped 22 points to 11th place. I mean, dropping from fourth place. And that's a pretty big it's a pretty big drop.
it's a pretty big decline and reflects the environment in which the press is working in the U.S. Obviously, a country where through the First Amendment, journalists have huge and very important guarantees, as maybe no other country in the hemisphere. But the current administration labeling media and journalists, enemies of the people, fake news, lawsuits, multi-million-dollar lawsuits against journalists, all the restrictions that journalists faced, covering, for example, protests in Minneapolis, two journalists arrested, journalists being beaten by law enforcement, provides a landscape where, those those protections provided by the First Amendment are being weakened.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Now, just shortly after your report came out, Freedom House also released its annual report on freedom in the world. And both of your reports are pretty gloomy when it shows a decline in freedoms across the board, but particularly in press freedom. As you mentioned, the U.S. dropped points. Mexico dropped to number 18 from number 13. Uh, what kind of conclusions are you drawing from these, and specifically, what concerns does the IAPA have as a result of what you've seen in this report?
Well, I mean, we put out another release recently, doing a more nuanced analysis of the index, and it's clear that the situation of press freedom decline, has a multiple factors that are influencing the work of media and journalists. There's an adverse environment which is marked by violence, as I said before, in countries like Mexico and other Central American countries, and including Peru, where 2025 was a very deadly year, for probably one of the deadliest years in recent decades in Peru, at least 4 journalists killed in retaliation for the work. There are institutional constraints, there's state pressure, there's this hostile rhetoric which is impacting journalists almost everywhere where they go to cover even official acts, and impunity, right? Impunity is probably one of the most pervasive consequences of deadly violence, as in countries where journalists are regularly or frequently killed for their work. These cases go unpunished. There's no successful prosecutions or convictions, which is kind of a green light for the perpetrators of this crime, because they, you know, um, believe that without punishment, they can continue to perpetrate this violent act without suffering any consequences. So,
There, oh,
you
sorry.
know, unfortunately, in the analysis we did, there are 8 countries in the Americas, a total of 8 countries that were classified as high restriction. So, I mean, there's a group of countries where there's no freedom of expression. That's a category. Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua. followed by these 8 countries where there's high restrictions, including Ecuador, Bolivia, Peru, Honduras, Mexico, El Salvador, Cuba, and Haiti, which are countries going through complicated, complex situations affecting the work of the press.
Now, you point out a lot of problems, a lot of very important issues. I think the issue of impunity has been a long-term problem, but it seems to be getting worse in many cases. With the release of this report, with the Freedom House report, and we're going to have the Reporters Without Borders report coming out at the end of the month.
Mhm.
What kind of how can we use these reports to maybe come up with a plan of action, or is there a plan of action to deal with what you see as a growing issue of reduction of press freedom in the Americas?
Well, these reports are helpful because it provides a kind of mapping and kind of detailed documentation of what's going on in the region as a whole, and also points out to what are the main problems affecting the work of the press, country by country, in a country by country analysis, right? So we said, deadly violence and impunity, increasing judicial harassment, a hostile rhetoric, stigmatization of journalists by officials. And then you have, lack of access to information. You have, institutional constraints. So, those problems affecting the work of the press can give you at least a diagnose of the problem. And then, of course, ideas of how to advocate and how to seek to address those concerns by different actions that can be deployed in each of these countries. Deployed, I mean, it's mostly done through first documentation, denunciation, right, and the fact that these reports are out, so citizens across the hemisphere can be informed about the problems facing the press. And then, for international organizations like the Inter-American Press Association, this analysis is helpful to conduct, and this research is helpful to conduct effective advocacy in different fronts, no? In terms of, seeking to address the levels of violence by highlighting, the lack of exhaustive, timely investigations in crimes against the press. Well, and trying to clearly say where these cases are stuck in the internal legal systems, no? And if they have exhausted internal legal systems, see, if they can have redress through the Inter-American human rights system, which has proven to be, a last resource, but also provided international jurisprudence, which is important in terms of, advising states of how to deal with the consequences of these crimes, right?
Right.
In terms of restrictive legislation point out what are these laws, how these laws infringing, the constitutional right of freedom of expression in each country, and what can be done in terms of avoiding limits that contradict, internal legal systems, but also international standards of freedom of
Right.
expression. The limits in terms of access to information that have been pointed out in many of these reports. There's a whole set of issues. And
Okay.
the IAPA, besides the Chapultepec Index that has been released a few weeks ago, is going to put out its biannual press freedom country reports coming up April 24th. As we do each year, in mid-year meeting in April, and then our follow-up reports in October during the General Assembly.
You touched on one thing that I have heard from our colleagues around the world that is important on this struggle of uh, revealing and dealing with the issues of press freedom restrictions, and that's international solidarity among journalists and journalism organizations. Uh, do you have any thoughts on ways that we might be able to improve our solidarity efforts in order to uh, help our friends in Latin America, in the Americas, to help our friends in Asia, and let's face it, even places in Europe where they're beginning to face some repression as well.
Yeah, I think the first step for journalists and media, and obviously for organizations, is the press and journalists are going through tough times, right? We have highlighted the problems affecting the press, and on top of that, the media are dealing with sustainability, are threatening its viability and its survival in many cases. There's news deserts as almost everywhere in the Americas, as many media cannot sustain themselves anymore, and are going, closing their print editions, going online, some of them disappearing. And on top of that, you have the disruption caused by artificial intelligence, which is, creating an even bigger challenge, for media everywhere. So I think that solidarity comes first, right? And I think that journalists have to be aware that and media also, that this is not a regional problem, it's a global problem. So solidarity comes first, and there's many ways to do it, but I mean, I think the easiest one is just to be able to express not only condemnations, but also support for those who are going through very difficult conditions, and from the perspective of the support, philanthropic organizations and cooperation agencies, through they should look deeply into how the media is operating in those very complicated environments. The dismantling of USAID, has created, 1 year after, has left media globally, without critical support, right? And that hasn't been covered by, yeah, that support that was provided by USAID has not been supplied or supplemented by, other cooperation agencies in Europe, and some of the private philanthropic organizations. They have changed their strategies, and some are not longer supporting press freedom, and so it's important to look into the landscape and see what's going on, because solidarity from organizations is commonplace, and has improved, and it's absolutely necessary. But the donor community also needs um, to look into what's going on, and understand that support at this time is critical for media to be able to do their jobs, because the press is a pillar of democracy, and freedom of expression is under attack, and without a comprehensive understanding of what's going on, it will become more difficult for journalists and media to be able to do their work.
Right. You mentioned some important points. I think that when a reporter in Iowa or Michigan can take a look at this report, and she'll be able to see many of the same issues uh, facing that in their local area that you're seeing in other places within the Americas. Media sustainability, the dangers of AI. Um, and this is all part of the solidarity, is trying to get, I think, more people to see themselves and similar issues outside their own territory, so that maybe there can be a more reporting, maybe a better awareness of what's going on in the situation. Do you have any thoughts about that? Trying
Yes,
to get some local stories based on some of this?
I mean, that's a very good point, Dan. I think that the problems facing journalists in Latin America, for example, are becoming similar to some of the challenges that journalists are facing in the United States and in Europe, and obviously in parts of Africa. Situation is different, but there are cases that resemble are similar to So I think it's even more important for journalists in this country, for example, to be looking at how did the Venezuelan press face and confront challenges racing from overt censorship, rampant censorship, to incarceration of journalists for doing the work, to the closed shutdown of many media outlets for administrative or judicial decisions. So yes, I think it's important to go out of your place and see what's going on in the rest of the world, because many of the problems that are facing that journalists and media are facing in Latin America can resemble what's going on anywhere else in the world. The problems are similar.
Right.
The solutions are different, and you have to adapt to obviously to the idiosyncrasy and the culture of every single country. And but I think the similarities are becoming much more evident.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um, Coming down to the end here, but I know you've been working on the case of the two Haitian journalists who were recently kidnapped, and you did mention that this is the first time Haiti was included in the report. Uh, can you say a few words, whatever you can tell us about what you've learned about the situation of the journalists, but maybe also just a little bit about what's going on in Haiti at this point that we have this kidnapping situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, Dan, Haiti faces one of the most critical situations in the hemisphere with extreme violence, widespread insecurity, and conditions that severely hinder the work of the press. I mean, gangs dominate widespread areas of Port-au-Prince, the capital city of Port-au-Prince, and many other urban centers elsewhere in the country. I mean, working as a journalist there carries uh, uh, severe risks, and it's there's uh, a history of killings and abductions, and the situation is really dire for journalists almost everywhere in that country. I mean, we are really concerned about the fate of these two journalists who were kidnapped a few weeks ago. Junior Celestine of Radio Televisión Megastar and Osnel Esperanza of Radio Uni FM. It happened in downtown Port-au-Prince. According to what has been reported, they were intercepted and taken against the will in an area which is, as I said before, controlled by armed groups. The families of these journalists have requested a proof of life. We are very worried about their situation, and there's a report that we have not confirmed, and we are trying to confirm that these journalists were executed. This was reported by a group in Haiti, and obviously we are trying to see what's going on, but it is not easy in this context under the current conditions to be able to get reliable information. So,
Right. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. I know it's always been a difficult time. We've interviewed a few Haitian journalists in exile about the situation, and it does seem to be a very bleak situation. But you do have the bravery of the reporters, the editors who are still there trying to tell the story.
Oh yes,
Um,
that's you need that kind of courage to be able to
right.
do to conduct reporting in that environment, completely lawless environment. That.
On a positive note, I I noticed the Dominican Republic moved into first place in the Chapultepec Index, and having lived there for 3 years, I'm kind of pleased that they have done so. What happened there that put them in the lead, and what do you think other countries might learn from their actions?
Well, I mean, you have to take this, in the context. I mean, journalists can, do reporting pretty in a pretty free environment. That's the truth in the Dominican Republic, and that's why um, the the country is leading the index, no? But despite the fact that it's one of the freest environment for journalists and media in America, There are still problems. That's not not everything is perfect, no, of course. And we have heard from our partners there about the use of state advertising as a tool of control, and there are some tensions generated by legislative proposals. Although the country has been recognized for its media openness, it also faces some challenges. The report mentions the migration of advertising to the global tech platforms, and this thing about the manipulation of state advertising to provide support to those media that favor government policies, and embargo advertising to punish those critical is a concern. But obviously there are things that can be learned from a country that has, according to the index, one of the freest environments in Latin America.
I know from personal experience that they've been slowly improving their freedom of information laws, because I was there kind of at the beginning and have been keeping an eye on that. So it's a very positive step
Oh, yes, no
as well.
question about it.
Yeah. Let me just wrap it up. Do you have any other comments you'd like to make? Any other points that we didn't talk about for this session?
Oh, I think we covered almost everything, Dan. I mean, thank you so much again for your attention, for your concern about the situation and the deterioration of press freedom, and really appreciate it. It was very nice speaking with you.
Well, I know you're very busy. You've got a board meeting coming up. You've got reports you have to have prepared. Believe me, I know that. I have to do the same with the SPJ. So I want to thank you, Carlos Lauria, Executive Director for the Inter-American Press Association. Thank you very much for taking time and talking about your index and talking about some of the press freedom issues that we see in this hemisphere.
Great. Thank you again, Dan, and to the SPJ for your great work.